Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
Mommy, buy me a license plate!
No, come along, Bort.
Are you talking to me?
No, my son is also named
Hello,
Bort.
and welcome to the Bort Experience, a Simpsons podcast here on the Noob News Network channel on YouTube, and check out the Bort Experience on Spotify, a Simpsons podcast. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone that's tuning into the episodes. I'm having a lot of fun. Today is a especially great day. I just heard some good news on my personal side for my own professional career, so I'm very happy. I'm just tired. I've just been working like crazy. But I am excited to jump into this episode. So today, we're going over episode 4 of season 1 of The Simpsons. The title of the episode is There's No Disgrace Like Home. It's the 4th episode of the television series, and it first aired on Fox on January 28th, 1990. It was directed by Greg Vanzo and Kent Butterworth, written by Al Jean and Mike Reese. So we'll just kind of go ahead and jump into the episode overview. First, we have the couch gag, I will not burp in class. And then, the chartboard gag, I should say. And then the couch gag, the family hurries onto the couch. Homer is squeezed off and he says dope. So this episode I had a lot of fun with. The other one was really heavy with, Homer losing his job. This one kind of really spotlights the entire family. So Homer takes his family to the company picnic at Mr. Burns' manor. Marge, Bart, and Lisa embrace Homer, and he notices that Mr. Burns seems to favor a family who loves and respects one another. Convinced that both he and his family are pathetic, Homer takes everyone to Dr. Marvin Monroe, a family therapy center. When standard methods prove useless in civilizing them, Dr. Monroe resorts to shock therapy. Soon the Simpsons start shocking each other, causing the whole town to lose power. Dr. Monroe refunds the Simpsons. So that's the really quick overview of the episode. What I really like at the beginning, as they're heading to the picnic, or even before the picnic, actually, I should say, when Marge is cooking all her different Jell-O dishes. I guess the year prior, Mr. Burns had said, he really liked the Jell-O. So Homer went around telling everyone that that's what he liked. So when they get there as a family with all the Jell-O in hand, it's kind of revealed that, that's what everyone else did. And Mr. Burns is kind of irritated. And he's like, yeah, put it with all the rest. Like, some idiot heard me say that I liked it, or said that I do like it, but I don't. So it was kind of funny that, kind of Homer was the instigator or the origin of what Mr. Burns likes or doesn't like. I also found it interesting, too, that we get another shot of Smithers. He looks more like the Smithers we get to know in, later seasons or, later iterations. He has the yellow skin like he normally does, but his hair's kind of blue. I think, eventually it kind of is more of like a grayish, light brown color, I would say. So they're still kind of like tweaking that. And just to kind of stay on the colorization of the characters, later in the episode we get two of the cops, Lou and Eddie. And Lou is painted yellow, which he eventually becomes a black character. So I thought it was interesting. In this first season, there's a lot of like color with the animation and kind of some animation issues, which is to be expected. It's the first season of the show and they're trying to figure it out. Oh, also, before I get too much further into the episode, we had the running gag that my wife always gets me a good shirt. You will notice this is the same shirt I wore last episode. Despite my wife's best effort, she did order me a shirt that was supposed to be here yesterday. So I waited to record until today, but it's still not in. I think it got delayed, unfortunately, until this weekend. So expect a new shirt next time. But instead, I'm still rocking this. I have the Star Wars, love as well. So it still works. So I'll give it to her. I'm still expecting, 800 shirts. So, this will be number 4. So we're doing good. So Yeah, so that's what kind of I thought was interesting. I also kind of thought the concept of what makes a great family was a great commentary on what sitcoms were up until that point in history. The biggest, family that people looked at, and especially compare the Simpsons to were either the Waltons or the Cosby Show. And back then, sitcoms were very, hey, there might be a problem or something happens in the episode. By the end, they all come together as a family. And I think the Simpsons does that, at least in this episode and other episodes as well. But they come at it a different way, like kind of acknowledging, like, hey, families aren't perfect. There are some things that you can work on, but they still love each other, which I thought was a good message that, when I was a kid, I always was like, hey, I wish my family was like this, or like, I wish this was like this. And, I feel like, there's always room for improvement, but I think it's always good to be realistic of like what is actually happening in the world. And I think maybe that's why The Simpsons speaks to so many people, is because, hey, my family isn't perfect like, the Cosby Show or the Brady Bunch, or I don't think they make sitcoms like that much anymore, where like everything's perfect. I think there's more tension and more angst amongst the members of the family, or the episode, or the characters of the show. But at least back then in the 90s, it was, or even before that, that's not what sitcoms were. So I really appreciate The Simpsons kind of adverting expectations of what a family is and what a sitcom family can be. And I feel like that's very well showcased in this episode. I also find it very funny that Marge gets drunk, Bart and Lisa are causing mayhem, Maggie gets put into a room, and it's really funny where Marge is like, I don't know if I want to leave them unsupervised, and they just turn on the TV. And I think for a lot of millennials, at least, and maybe even other people, Gen X, it's like, we grew up on TV. So it's just kind of funny where I remember as a kid, I had a VHS, and my parents would just put in like and eventually I learned to do it myself, but when I was younger, I just remember them putting in like Disney movies or some cartoon movie, and I would just play with my toys and just have that, and I would just be in my room all the time. I would go outside and play outside too, but like a lot of times I was just inside watching television. So I think a lot of people now have kids and try to limit the screen time, and I just think it's interesting, like the kind of where the mindset is, at least in that time period, and how it's evolved and like changed, and like, hey, that's maybe not the best to be watching so many hours of TV at such a young age, and try to read more and stuff like that. So I found it very interesting and pretty funny. But one of the kind of key things too in this episode is kind of towards the end. Homer's depressed, and he's thinking that his family should be more like that typical sitcom family, like I had mentioned earlier, where, hey, I should have a loving wife and kids that respect me, and these things, and he feel like he doesn't have that. So he go, after seeing Dr. Monroe, which I had mentioned in the recap or the overview, they go to his therapy session and they try all these different techniques, and eventually it doesn't work. So they get their money back. But I think that's an interesting thing to talk about therapy, and how it can help families, but it can't help the Simpsons. And it's interesting. I think therapy can really help people if they accept it and come to it themselves, because if you try to force someone to go somewhere and they didn't choose it or want to seek help themselves, then it's probably not going to be very effective. And I feel like this is kind of showcased there, where like Homer wants to potentially change, but the other family members don't. They just want to watch TV and kind of just keep going how they have been their entire lives. But I think it was just like an interesting showcase of like what therapy, I guess, infomercial like therapy was back in the 90s, and how it's evolved. And I really do, I'm a big proponent of, if you feel like you need help, you should go to therapy, and there's nothing to be ashamed about that. So I hope if anyone is, depressed or anything like that, especially with last episode about, people losing their jobs, and, the economy's really bad right now, if you can afford it, and there's a lot of options where you can even go either for very low cost or free, I definitely recommend it, because it really helped me, or it has helped me, throughout my life, or not throughout my life, but, in the last, like, I would say 2 or 3 years when I first went, it's really improved a lot of aspects, and then I think there's even times where you can go back if some event triggers stress or depression. So I'm a really big advocate. So it was fun to see in this episode, even if it wasn't a comedic and kind of more funny way. Next, we're kind of going to go over to the citizens of Springfield. In this segment, we kind of list the cast and what characters they play. Oh, and one thing, I don't know if they had any dialogue, but I believe this is the first time we saw Itchy and Scratchy. I don't think they're named on screen, but we see them kind of fighting on the TV, and then Homer shuts it off and has a family meeting. So I kind of thought that was a cool little taste of the show inside of a show inside of a show. So it's great to see them. So we have Dan Castanella as Homer Simpson, Barney Gumble and son in Monroe ad. We have Julie Carver as Marge Simpson, Nancy Cartwright as Bart Simpson, Tom Gamble, mother number 2 and receptionist. We have Yardley Smith as Lisa Simpson. We have Harry Shearer as Mr. Burns, Waylon Smithers, father number 1, documentation voice, father number 2, boxing announcer, Eddie, who's one of the cops I had mentioned earlier, Dr. Marvin Monroe, of course, and then voice in Monroe ad, and then pawnbroker and father number 3. That pawnbroker was really creepy. I don't know if he ever pops up again, but he's just like, hey, Simpson, how are you doing? And I don't know, just the delivery and just how they did the animation was very creepy. It almost reminds me of like the Yes guy, like yes, that we see later. But yeah, it's funny. Harry was pulling double duty with all these characters. We have Hank Azaria as Mo Sizlak, Mr. Gamble, Lou, and father in Monroe ad. And then we have Maggie Roswell as mother number 1, daughter and mother in Monroe ad, and Pamela Hayden as son number 1 and son number 2. So not a lot of extra characters besides like Itchy and Scratchy. Dr. Monroe, I feel like, and this is just like coming back, like, when I watched the show so many years ago, I feel like Dr. Monroe eventually dies. I don't, know if, I think it's just like a news announcement or something. I don't think it's like a huge deal, but I think he's like one of the characters that does die somewhat early in the show's run. I'm assuming before in that like season 10 or, between 1 and 10 range, but don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure he's, not in the show anymore. And I don't think he pops up too many times. They have other doctor characters like Dr. Nick and Dr. Herbert that kind of fill the role. They're not really therapists per se, but I do like how he's drawn. He's drawn very interesting. I like how his like kind of beard and how he sounds and everything. He sounds very like what you imagine a therapist like back in the day, like a Freudian type therapist. But then it's like a Better Call Saul type. It's like, oh, I have my doctorate or whatever, but I got kicked out, so now I'm having to sell therapy on TV, and especially for ads during boxing matches for families. So it's just a really interesting character, pretty funny, in how he interacts with the family. So the best joke of the episode is kind of a two-parter, and I'm going to, bear with me, I'm going to kind of read it, but it's pretty much in relative of the Homer finding out about the therapy. So we have the TV All-Star Boxing was brought to you by Dr. Marvin Monroe's Family Therapy Center. Dr. Marvin Monroe waves. Wife, honey, are you going to work today? Husband, no, I don't think so. Wife, honey, you have a problem and it won't get better until you admit it. Husband, I admit this. You better shut your big yap. Wife, oh, you shut up. Husband, no, you shut up. Wife, no, you shut up. Husband, oh, shut up. Wife, shut up. Husband, shut up. Little kid enters the bedroom. Kid, why don't you both shut up? Dr. Monroe, hi friends, I'm Dr. Marvin Monroe. Does this scene look familiar? If so, I can help. No gimmicks, no pills, no fad diets, just family bliss or double your money back. So call today. Dial 1-800-555-HUGS. I did not try to call that number, so I'm not sure if it actually goes anywhere, but it's worth a look. I might get something that I don't I don't know. It might go somewhere I don't want to go to. And then so that's kind of like part one of the joke, and that's like where Homer like has the epiphany of like, hey, we need to go do this. They pawn the TV. The family is aghast, and like they're like, this is like a part of the family. How dare you get rid of this? So they go to the therapy session, and then they try all these different methods. First, kind of like drawing their cause of like depression or anger, and they're all drawing Homer. And then they try to use these kind of like foam mallets. It reminded me almost of like LARPing, if you've ever seen people do that in like public parks where they have like the foam swords. They're hitting each other, and they're like, "Oh, you don't really feel anything." And then Bart's like, "Hey, let me, you'd feel more if you take the foam padding." And then he's like, and the doctor's like, "No." And then Bart hits the doctor in the leg, who's visibly in pain, and he's pretty much okay. This requires stricter methods to enforce or just administer. So he does the shock therapy. Before he can give the instructions, of course, the family starts shocking each other and they're just going crazy. They pull a power on the power grid. We shoot to Mr. Burns, who's saying like, excellent, they're using all the power of the power plant. We'll be able to charge them more pretty much. So that's kind of like, the setup of the part two of the joke where we come into here where he pretty much, the Dr. Monroe kind of kicks him out and says, I can't help you people. And Homer reminds the doctor that his commercial promised family bliss or double your money back, which this therapy costs $250, which I should have looked it up, but I don't know the conversion or not conversion, but the inflation, what that would be in today's dollars. I'm assuming quite a bit. And, of course they don't make that much money. Even though Homer's like a nuclear safety engineer or safety inspector, which I'm assuming pays very well, but he probably squanders it on donuts. Who knows? But anyway, regardless, that's a lot of money. That's why they had to pawn the TV. So double the money will be $500. And he says, but that was just and he kind of like groans and he's like, all right. He reluctantly tells the receptionist to get the money. Outside, Monroe counts the $500 into Homer's hand and angrily tells them to leave and not tell anyone they were here. He doesn't want any of the publicity. He doesn't want people to know like, hey, I can't help them and I don't want you anywhere. Like, don't promote this or don't say that you came here. The family, the Simpson family are astounded at first, pleasantly surprised. Quote, it's not the money as much as the feeling that we earned it, observes Lisa. Marge suggests they repurchase their pawn television set, but Homer has bigger plans. We're going to get a new TV, 21-inch screen, realistic flesh tones, and a little cart so we can wheel it into the dining room. On holidays, the kids cheer, Marge kisses them, the Simpsons walk off together as a family. So a very, we didn't get there in the typical sitcom fashion, but a very sitcom-y ending where everyone's happy and they're a big happy family. I thought that it had to be a part 1 and 2 joke for me, because first we get it with the commercial that Homer's watching in the bar, all the way up until the shock treatment and the disgust from Dr. Monroe and giving them the money, and pretty much almost saying like, hey, because I did this, we're getting a better TV and some extra money in our hand. I also find it funny that 21 inches, I'm sure back then was incredible. I remember as a kid, my dad would have these kind of bigger TVs, but they weren't flat screens yet, and they were so heavy. It would take 2 of us to carry them when we would move them to a different room. They were hell. It was so miserable. I'm so glad that technology doesn't exist. I think now we only have one TV in our house. It's down the bedroom, or not the bedroom, in the living room, and I believe it's a 50-inch or 55-inch, so almost double to triple the size of what they're talking about. It reminds me of almost like Michael Scott in that episode of The Office, where he's like, it's a plasma screen TV, and it's it looks so tiny, but I am imagining that's what 21 inches looks like in terms of TV size. So overall it was a great joke, and that to me was the best joke. And then the MVP, if it wasn't clear from my discussion of the episode, was the entire family. I feel like, especially at the beginning, we have more stuff with Marge, she cuts loose, which I feel like they might taper back on her character a little bit, but it was our kind of first real Marge indulgence. Usually Homer's the drunkard, but she was able to kind of get drunk with all these other housewives and have a good time. The kids, kind of play around, and then Homer, of course, on his journey with wanting a better family. But I feel like they all stood out very well in this episode. I think I liked the other 2 episodes better. I still think this is a good episode, but probably just not my favorite so far, but I still enjoyed it. There were still some good laughs. Yeah, like I said, overall, great episode. Not my favorite so far, but still good. And for our last segment, last time we did Simpsons trivia from this old trivia game I have right back here. Okay, so today I think we have a good question. Who tells Ralph Wiggum to burn things? Repeating, who tells Ralph Wiggum to burn things? No multiple choice. So I'll give you a few seconds. Pause the video. Don't look it up. Don't cheat. I'll know. I will know if you cheat. So don't pause the video. Hey, I'm looking at you. Okay. We'll read the question one more time and answer. Who tells Ralph Wiggum to burn things? The leprechaun. I thought that's great. I don't know what seasons it's from, but that's a great line. We will continue with Simpsons trivia next week. I look forward to reviewing it. Also, please go follow the Noob News Network, and you'll be able to also follow the wonderful podcast that you're listening to, the Bort Experience, a Simpsons podcast, on there on the YouTube channel. You can also check us out on Spotify. Like I said, it's going to be still 1 episode a week. We might look at doing other things in between then, but the channel does a lot of other stuff, so go check it out. I appreciate everyone who's followed and liked my content so far. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. So next time, I will have a new Simpsons shirt, I promise you. Or my wife will not hear the end of it. So until next time, peace out. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe to the Noob News Network on Patreon, YouTube, and social media. Thank you, and have a great day.